Alright, welcome everybody to this tech lunch about Angular 2. In a MAPA a couple of weeks ago, Jouni and Jens did a small presentation about Angular 2, and this is how they presented it, being this evil empire that is scattering followers throughout the galaxy. But I like to see things a bit differently, and hopefully after this tech lunch, so will you. So this is how I see the current situation. There's a lot of different frameworks out there, all fighting for supremacy. And here in the middle, you can see this old princess. She's called AngularJS and came out already in 2010. And after that, she has got a lot of different rivals. But no worries, now it's time for Angular 2. So yeah. Presentation about Angular 2, and those who don't know me, my name is Sami Suo-Heikki, and let's get this started with. So the first question in hand, what is Angular 2? Now I believe that everybody has a small clue about what is Angular, but still let's make a small recap out of it. So Angular is a JavaScript framework made for building awesome and fast web applications. But in addition to web applications, you can also build mobile and desktop applications with it. But I will soon get more into that. The whole Angular framework is a fully component-based, meaning that when you load the framework, you don't have to load all the features out there, just the core of it. And when you need the additional features, you can load them separately. And with Angular 2, you can easily build your own application to be fully component-based also. The Angular is built from the ground up by using TypeScript, so types are a first-class construct in it, and you can build your own app with TypeScript also. Angular supports native ES6 modules, meaning that you can declaratively import and export all the modules, so you don't have to set up script tags in all of your application. And the last thing is that Angular supports server-side pre-rendering, meaning that the first view of your application can be pre-rendered on the server, meaning that the first view is loaded super fast for the user. And one framework for mobile and desktop. This is how Google promotes Angular, and that's of course pretty much marketing, well, you know what. But there's some truth behind this also, meaning this mobile and desktop, and it doesn't only mean web applications in either mobile or desktop browsers, but even mobile and desktop applications. But in those cases, you usually need some third-party libraries, but I can show you just a couple of them quickly. First up is Ionic, and with Ionic you can build hybrid mobile applications for iOS, Android, and Windows. And how Ionic works is that they use web views, the same web views that you would use when you're using your Angular in a web app, but also you get features like camera and GPS. And another library is called the NativeScript, and with NativeScript you can actually build native mobile applications. So the NativeScript has a renderer that transforms your Angular 2 app into using the native UI elements. And the third one is Electron, which you can use for creating desktop applications. And that uses part of Chrome and Node.js. And with it you can also get access to all the platform APIs like hardware. But I'm not today here to talk about them anymore. If you want to check them out, please do. My agenda for today is pretty simple. First, I will show you just about the architecture of an Angular 2 application. And after that, I will show you how to build your own application with using the Angular CLI, the command line interface. And after that, do a small comparison to other JavaScript frameworks out there. And at the last, I will just show you a couple of useful tools for you to use when you're building your own Angular app. All right. So the first topic in hand, the architecture. Now I've divided the architecture into 5 different sections. Of course, Angular app would need more, but due to this limited time, I will go through only the 5s. First up, component, then binding, service, router, and the directives. So let's take a closer look all of these in one by one. So the first up is component, and the component is like the main feature of your Angular app. So every Angular app has at least one component, which can be called like the root component, and that's job is just to encapsulate the template data and the behavior of a view. And this is how a component looks like in an Angular application. So the first step you need to do is to import the component from the Angular library. And after that, you can set up your own component. And the first step you see there is the selector. And the selector means that what HTML element it should use. So in this component's parent component, there should be some hello world element. And it will be initialized as this hello world component. And all the components have a template of its own. So in this case, I've only added hello and probably world. And after setting up the component, you just have to do a regular TypeScript class. So now I did one with a hello world component. And it can have all properties and methods. And in this case, I've only added the construction method, just setting the name property in the world. So it will show hello world. And one important thing in Angular applications is that you should decouple the component from the DOM. So no accessing the DOM directly from the component. So please don't use jQuery in Angular. It's not good. And if you don't access the DOM directly, we use binding for it. So in this example, we can set up some name property and then use it in the DOM, and it will automatically update every time the name property is changed. So pretty simple stuff. And you can also bind all the events happening on the DOM, like clicks or key inputs. And in this case, I've just binded the click event to onClick method. And Angular also supports two-way data binding, and this is how it's done in Angular. So it's pretty easy. Just set the square brackets and the parentheses, and you can two-way data bind any attribute. So in this case, I've data binded the value attribute of an input to my to-do text. Next up is the services, and services isn't really any Angular 2 specific stuff, but it's just, you know, kind of like a component, but for all the non-UI logic to do in there. So just reusable data services in your application. And some examples what you should do in your service is the data accessing, all the HTTP calls, and other non-UI logic like logging or configurations of your application. And the next part is the router, which, surprise, surprise, is responsible for navigation. So it subscribes to the URL changes in your app, and with it, shows the current component for it. So here's an example what a router looks like in Angular 2 app. So you first just use the routes tag, and before that, of course, importing the routes from the Angular 2. And then you can just set up the routes and the components that the route should use. So pretty simple stuff. And the last part of this architecture is the directives. And the directives are kind of like components that I showed you previously. But unlike components, directives doesn't have any template or HTML on its own. So it's just used for modifying existing DOM elements or extending their behavior. And one example of a directive is what the elements and the protein built for the Vaadin elements in Angular 2. And this is if you load the Vaadin charts in your app and just try to use them, it will probably look like this. So you can see the chart title and there's 2015 at the bottom. And how we fix this is with the Angular directives. So in this case, you should just set up the directives for this view, and after that it probably would look something like this, hopefully. Yeah, that was everything that I had to say about the architecture right now. Now I can show you how you can build your own app by using the Angular's command line interface. The first step you need to do is to install the Angular CLI to your computer, and after that you can start using it. So I can show you how it should work. Can you see this? Probably not. Magnify your. Okay, hopefully it's a bit better now. Yeah, after installing all the Angular CLI to your computer, you can start using the ng and the needed commands for it. So if we want a new application to get started, we can use the ng new and then the project's name. Project awesome. And this will create a new directory to you, and it will load all the needed non-modules for your application and also all the components for you to get started. This will take about a couple of minutes, but I already did this with one app. So let's just go to, you can see. Oh, there it is. Now I've done the ng serve, and actually before this I can show you what it actually loads. So here's the TechLunch directory that I did the ng start for. Here you can see a bunch of TypeScript files and other stuff. And here are the node modules. All the node modules have already been installed, as you can see. And I think the important folder here is the source folder. And this source folder actually has your application in it. So there's the index.html, and then in the app directory is all the Angular 2 components and the templates that they use. So this is what the index.html looks like, just loading all the needed libraries and then bootstrapping your Angular 2 application. And it will go to this TechLunch component class that is automatically created. And in here you can see there's just one component that has a template file and a style file and one property title, and that will say TechLunch works. So this is what the template looks like. So there should be just one heading that says TechLunch works. And the CSS file that it automatically generated is empty by default. But I can show you what the app really looks like. So we can use the ng serve in our application. And now it did a live reload server and typical server in your app. So here it is. Tech Lunch works. Awesome. So it's actually that fast to get started with Angular 2 application. And there are also some more commands that you can use. So if we want to create more features in our application, we can use the CLI and don't have to code everything by ourselves. So for example, we can use the ng generate root and then the root's name. So my root. And what it does, it installs a component for you to use and also modifies your root component to have the root already in there. So we can check out how it looks like now. So this is our root component, and now it automatically imported all the modules needed for routing, and it also has set routes for us to use and one path, and that will load the myRoot component. And it also created the myRoot component and all the template files and all the style files for it. So this is what the myRoot component looks like, what it created just now. And it would say myRoot works. So if I just put the server back running again using the ng serve, yeah. Yeah, our application is still working. And now if I go to my hero, my root it was, yes. It's still actually showing the Tech Lunch works. And I actually banged my head for like 30 minutes figuring out why, because I thought that this should work. But I found a quick hack. So if I set up in the root components, here it should show the router outlet beneath here. But if I just set up some router link in our app, and it even doesn't have to be a real route that it has, but some fake, and just save it, and the myRoot, now myRoot works. So yeah, I have no idea why it didn't work on the first time. The CLI is still in the beta phase, so might be probably because of that. And when you have done enough of coding in your app, you can, at the least, when it's in the final mode, you can use the ng build for building your production version of your application. And it will take just a couple of seconds for it to build it. Yeah, build project successfully stored in the dist folder. So here you can see the dist folder, and there's the same data that we had in the source folder, but all the testing features and stuff like that have been removed. Yeah. And that easy it is to actually start using Angular CLI and to build your own application with it. So now let's continue with the presentation. Yeah, we covered these. Yeah. So to the next topic in hand, comparison to other frameworks. And I did a small comparison. These are only my subjective opinions. You can think differently, of course, but I will at least show how I think about this. So first up, Angular versus Polymer. And I have three criteria here. And the maximum is 5 stars. And for simplicity, I have given Angular 3 stars, because starting a new project can be a bit difficult. There are a lot of files, and just for showing a hello world, usually you need a couple of files for it. So, but after learning it, then Angular actually becomes a more clearer way of doing web apps. And for Polymer, I've only given 2 stars. Because the whole web components thing isn't that comfortable for everyone. So it's not that simple to start using Polymer in creating your new application. And the first up is the functionality. I have given Angular 5 out of 5 awesome because Angular in this Angular is very good. It has like the tools for everything and modules pretty much for everything for to build your entire web application with it, and you can do all the testing and everything that is needed. And for Polymer, I've given 4 out of 5 because it's almost as good as Angular, but it doesn't provide out of the box everything that you would need to do your web application. But with custom elements, you can usually find things that you are needing. And the last criteria, the convenience. Angular gets 4.5 stars because I believe it will be the de facto in building web applications in the future, the Angular 2. And there will be a lot of Angular stuff you can find online, and also a lot of other Angular developers for you to use it also. But for the Polymer, only 2 stars, because it might not be that convenient to use features that are not yet supported in all the browsers and stuff like that. Yeah, next up, Angular versus React. And I've already covered how Angular is working, so I'm not doing that again. But for the React, I think it's a lot more simple to start with. You just need a couple of lines of code and you can already get your React application running. So it will win Angular in a landslide on that. But then again, for the functionalities, React promotes that in MVC pattern there are only the view in it, and that's actually true. If you want to create an entire application with React, you probably need some other libraries to go with it. And for the convenience, probably for the same reasons as the previous, for building an entire application, it's not that great. But you know, you can use React also in other frameworks, so it can boost your application hugely. Yeah, that was all about the framework comparison to the last topic in hand. I just will show you a couple of useful tools. So when you're starting to use Angular, these are probably the tools that you want to use when you're creating your app. So the first up is the Angular's Augury, and Augury is a Chrome extension that you can install to Google Chrome, and with it you can debug your Angular 2 application pretty easily. So you can see the whole data flow and all the stages of a property with the Augury extension. So pretty neat and handy. And the next up is the Angular Style Guide. It pretty much tells you everything that you want to know when you're starting to use Angular 2, like how your architecture of your application should look like and how you should name all the variables, and you know, pretty much everything they will go through there. And then thirdly, I already showed this to you, the Angular CLI, the fastest way of starting a new Angular application. So if you have used Ember before, this is pretty much just copying the Ember CLI. And the last toolkit is the Angular's mobile toolkit, and that can be used for building progressive web applications easily, which supports offline mode and push notifications. And yeah, and in the newest warning competition, I would go with this library. But that's just my opinion. That was actually everything that I need to say. There's still a couple of minutes left for discussion, but I thank you very much. Yeah.
Have you faced any problems except that router problem while you were playing around?
Yeah, I previously used the beta versions of Angular app, and of course some things were breaking in there. But now that they have the release candidate version, not a lot of things are breaking. So the router link is like the only thing that I've found so far. Yeah.
In your comparison, you mentioned the convenience part of Angular 2 is very high, but you also said that in the future you will have lots of users and so on. How would you rate this convenience at the moment? Is there actually like lots of code examples and so on available?
Yeah, actually there are quite a lot, and already like 300,000 developers are using Angular 2, and you can find, well, pretty much everything that you would need to, at least for the simple applications. Yeah.
So how about non-simple applications? If I want to see how to do architecture with Angular 2 and more complex applications, is there an example available? What would you recommend to check out?
I don't have actually an example for that, so all the examples that I've seen are pretty much just hello world and some routine just done.
So 300, how many users?
300,000.
300,000.
Yeah.
All of them make their toolbox.
What? I didn't get that. All right, nothing else then.
Any thoughts on Hummingbird?
I don't know. I'm not that good of a Java developer.
Do you know any production, any applications in production based on Angular?
I don't know actually. Maybe not yet, because it's still in the release candidate version. All right, but thanks everybody.